locality, state, nation, you name it, and the whole world's ultimately resulting in pain because of it. Moving on into a little bit more specific questions. In terms of firearms, red flag laws, FOID cards, assault weapon bans, things of that nature, where do you stand on those?
Well, I spoke to a group called Gun Saves Lives last night in Pontiac, Michigan last night. And, I told the story of where do I, fundamentally, where do I get my Second Amendment values from? And, I've never been a gun guy. I like guns, and I own a gun, but, I'm not a fanatic, let's call it. I don't do sports and all that. So I can't speak from that standpoint, but I can speak from, my dad and my living in Poland really, what would you say, built my Second Amendment right values, because, he was a young man, 14 years old. He was in the Warsaw Uprising, and he was a messenger, and, he took 3 bullets during that time. And, he eventually escaped communist Poland, and he came to America, and I got to live with this guy who was so passionate about America, about its freedoms, about First Amendment rights, about his Second Amendment rights, and he had a lot of guns. And this was the place that gave him those freedoms, and that communist Soviet Union rule took away all the rights. And and then, of course, once I got to Poland and I got to experience living over there, I said, my gosh, you never want to return to that kind of environment with it. Once they take your rights away, it's a slippery slope, right? They will go after everything. And so, I'm just a rabid defender of Second Amendment rights. Just keep the handcuffs on the criminals and leave the gun owners alone. So we should get rid of a FOID card. We don't need a FOID card, right? We should get rid of the PICA bill and the quote, assault rifle ban. Get rid of that, oppose it, and hopefully the courts will take care of that, the federal courts. But we don't need any kind of all those silly controls, fees and all that. No, they're trying to control guns. We have to fight all of it.
Yeah, you're spot on with there, and talking about immigrant, and I say immigrant, not illegal, people that actually want to be here to contribute, to be part of the founding American dream and pull themselves up by their bootstraps kind of deal. You will most often find that legal immigrants who came here in the pursuit of Americanism, not handouts, are some of the most raw, red-blooded Americans you could ever hope for, be it first generation or 10th generation, because like you said, they've lived on the other side, and the opportunity that they now get to plant their flag and live where the grass is greener. A lot of people, and one thing I hate that the Democrats often do, and I don't feel Republicans push back enough on, they paint, we hate immigrants. No, we don't hate immigrants. We don't want illegals here. I don't even hate the illegals. I have empathy for people who live somewhere poor and want to better themselves, but we're either a nation of laws or we're not. And especially in Illinois, when it's a quote sanctuary city where we invite people to violate federal law, which is astounding in my mind of how that could stand and not be grounds for some type of treason, and lead to civil war kind of things. It gets nuts, and the fact that it still stands is beyond me. But yeah, I very much appreciate everyone coming over here that does come over here and just puts their hard work and grit to it and builds principles into their God-fearing, loving family. And we need more of them. If I could jokingly deport all the Karens and import all the people that want to come here and work, that'd be phenomenal. But moving on to another hot topic that no one enjoys talking about, what is your stance on abortion?
So it's interesting. It was such a big deal 4 years ago and 8 years ago, and it's amazing how on the campaign trail, it rarely comes up anymore. So it seems to be I think affordability and crime and all that and illegal immigration has just jumped much higher. So what's amazing about life is, again, I'm going to bring up how extreme we are. We are so extreme now. We allow third trimester abortions. We allow public funding of abortions. We have become the abortion capital of the Midwest. We have doubled the number of abortions in the last 7 years. We have the whole parental. We've taken away parental notice from parents. Parental notice of their kids getting an abortion. We are so extreme. We've moved so far beyond, I think, what the average Illinois and even the liberal Illinois would want. And this is all the legislature in Pritzker. I don't think it's the ordinary Illinoisans who want this. And the whole safe, legal, and rare of Clinton is like nowhere to be seen. And I am a believer that life begins at conception. So I'm on the other end, and sad that a guy like Pritzker celebrates abortions and celebrates it being abortion tourism. It's sad and it's sick, and we have to do everything we can to reverse that and get out of that extreme, and it's going to be tough with this legislature. But that's again another one of the battles we need to have. We can't be such an extreme outlier in this country.
No, very well said. Most people. I mean, basic science is life begins at conception, whether you want to bring God into it or not. That's just basic science. So anyone tries to ignore that fact in any argument is immediately not worth listening to going forward. But when it comes to the safe, legal, and rare, it's not safe, legal, and rare. It's now celebrated. We're going to light up towers so you can sacrifice your babies, or the idea. And it's not even just, talking about baby, the life of the baby. It's what does that do to society when a mother celebrates killing her kid? Maybe she was in a hard situation, all that other kind of stuff. All that falls on the wayside when it's all of a sudden celebrated and no longer seen as a sad thing that you felt you had to do. Now it's something you got to do. Now you go home and throw a party and film yourself on TikTok dancing about it. So it's a moral decay when mothers celebrate killing their own kids at the end of the day, regardless of how anyone feels about God in it. It's just a moral decay when a mother can do that to her own. What are they going to do to the rest of society that isn't? So, spot on.
Well, and you bring it to the other end too, right? So they passed the assisted suicide. So now we're doing it on both ends of the life spectrum. It's a fascinating to me, and I think I wish I could get the data. I'm drawing a blank right now on the black writer for the Wall Street Journal. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, he wrote about New York City from 2016 to 2019. I forget what it was. In New York City, and I couldn't believe the stat. And this kind of tells you the sadness of where we are. In New York City, in those whatever it was 2-year period, there were more black abortions than black births. And I've got to wonder whether that's the case in Chicago as well. And it just tells you how we're, it just tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I believe the person you're talking about is Jason Riley, but I'd have to.
Yeah, Jason Riley. Thank you. Okay. It is Jason Riley. Yes.
I was going to say I'd have to Google it to confirm.
Yeah, it was Jason. Yeah. And, and again, he's a black writer. So he's writing about that issue. And, when you're aborting more babies than live births, it's, what do you say about our culture? What do you say about the sanctity of life? So,
yeah, no, you're well, and then especially you talk about birth rates, and then you have more illegals coming across the border, and you're not at even rates in which you can reproduce the country itself. So you're just importing people that now weren't raised on the values, and it just leads to a whole slew of issues. That said, with early voting essentially beginning and the primaries right around the corner, what are you doing in terms of not just you're busy. We all see all your posts, and you are, the fact you find time to sleep. You have a very Trumpian work ethic. Well, you'll sleep when you're dead. Jokingly.
He's amazing. He's a lot older than I am, and he's amazing what he does. So
Oh yeah. I run on a few hours of sleep, and he manages the country on it, so I feel like I can never complain. But what are you doing to get the ground game out where you are not? For example, contacting local townships, and precinct committeemen, things of that nature. What are you doing to get the people out to vote for you, not just necessarily for the general election when it comes around the corner? What are you doing to really amp up the primary?
Yeah, so I've been fortunate. Before I ran, I said, if I'm going to run, I have to be able to raise money, and I think that's really a qualifying or a disqualifying factor. If you can't raise money, you probably shouldn't be running, because to take on Pritzker, you better be able to raise money. And so I was fortunate. I started in Chicago, where there were I'd say a lot of centrist reformers, and there's a conservative group. They tend to be a little bit more conservative on the fiscal side and a little bit less conservative on the social. But I met a bunch of them, and they got together, and they supported me. Also got the support of some downstate conservative donors, and then Dick Uihlein moved away from Bailey and joined our camp. And so what that allowed us to do is to be the leaders in fundraising. And so we started with a ground game. And so we have a person in Southern Illinois. We have one in Bloomington. We have somebody in Rockford. We have somebody of course, in Cook. A couple people in Cook, and we were fortunate to have a ground game, and that's why I've done. It's amazing. I've done over 200 events now in these 4 months, and it's taxing as hell, as you said, but it's fascinating because we've really gotten out and just done all the meet and greets. I've spent tons of time in Southern Illinois, Central Illinois, um, and so I think we've done what we can do. Of course, we got to keep. You can imagine we got to do a lot more. But since the beginning of January, that's when we started actually spending the other let's call the other half of our money on social media and ads. And so we ran an ad. We're the only ones to run an ad during the Bears playoff games, which is a great opportunity because suddenly we had this opportunity to reach people. And one of our ads has over 1.1 million views now, which is awesome. And we're just running across the different platforms, but at the same time, we're still out there. Carrie, my running mate, she's in Southern Illinois right now. She's going to go kind of on a healthcare tour. People's healthcare costs are skyrocketing, so she's out there doing that. And we just keep knocking on the doors, but we're building volunteers and getting the yard signs out. We're doing the basic hard work that I think any campaign does. I wish we had more time and I wish we had more money, but there is less money in Illinois right now in the Republican primary than ever, probably. So it's a little quieter in that sense, but we're all working hard.
Yeah, and it definitely shows, and I appreciate all you're trying to do for us here. Now, I have a few wrap-up questions, and we'll open it to some of our listeners to come up. One question, in my opinion, what are you doing to separate yourself from Trump? And what I mean by that, not that Trump's a bad guy or anything of that nature in any way. However, I feel in a way that the GOP is married to the idea of him, whereas using him as a representative of their ideas. So you kind of need the GOP to be able to stand on something once he's no longer here. And I feel like they're having a hard time getting their footing in that. So in your campaign, are you finding yourself tied to a lot of, oh, well, what about Trump doing this? What about Trump doing that? As I feel like most of the news tends to be, whereas opposed to just representing conservative values, if that makes sense.
Did we lose him?
No, it shows he's muted. The ex-goblins are back. As we wait for him to come back up, anyone that does want to speak, regular speaker, come on up. Feel free to request to join, and we'll get you up here to ask some of your questions. There's a lot of good ones coming up in the chat, but also be mindful of his time.
Ted, if you can hear me, you may need to leave the space and come back in.
right. We'll give them a minute, but everyone, do me a favor, just at least in the interest of time until we get through everybody, we'll treat it like school where, raise your hand, ask a question, and then be mindful of his time, and then let move on to the next one. But I'll go ahead and start accepting requests right now.
Looks like he's dropped out and is probably on his way to come back in, just FYI.